Hello, everybody. My name is Julia Rogers. I am the founder of Onward Consulting. I'm a gap year coach and counselor, and I help people design gap year plans and itineraries and help people figure out what exactly they want to do with this really special period of time. So today I'm going to do a quick 20-minute presentation to walk you through different gap year opportunities that are on offer for 2021 and what to think about in regards to COVID when it comes to your gap year planning. So we're going to start with a definition. We're going to move right into program opportunities and ideas, and then I'm going to end with some kind of practical advice as to how to get started with your planning. I'm going to be moving quickly, so if you need to rewatch it, please do. I've got a little presentation to help with it being visual, and so you can kind of see yourself in some of these opportunities. So I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me for 1 second. Here we go. Okay, so taking a gap year in 2021. I hope you are considering it. But first I want to start with a quick definition. What is a gap year? So a gap year is really supposed to be an intentional period of time where you deepen your personal, practical, and professional development. It's supposed to be intentional. It's supposed to be a rite of passage. It's supposed to be experiential, getting you out into the world, allowing you to experience things, places, new people. And coming out of that experience, you're going to have more thoughts about what you're good at, more knowledge about what you might want to study in school afterwards, and a lot more confidence, maturity, and just feeling really settled in who you are as a person and a young adult. That sounds pretty good, I'm sure, right? Yeah, a lot of gap year students say they can't imagine not having taken gap time. So if you're watching this and you're still on the fence, keep an open mind to all the ways that you might experience the world on a gap year. So conversely, there's definitely something that a gap year is not. A gap year is not the absence of a choice. So if a student graduates high school, decides not to go to college, doesn't get a job, just kind of hangs out on their parents' couch, that's not a gap year. That's something else that we won't be talking about today. So keep in mind that if you take a gap year, there's going to be an expectation that you make the most of this period of time by doing something that's important to you, or a set of things that allow you to achieve some personal goals. And that's really what helps make a gap year intentional and deliberate and not, dog on couch. So really at the core of it, a gap year is a choose your own adventure opportunity. If you're like me, maybe you grew up reading some of the choose your own adventure books, and that's kind of the best analogy that I can think of for a gap year. It allows you to really think about who you are as a person, what kinds of interests you have, what kinds of professional ambitions you might have, what are those things that you might want to work on to gain some more life skills. Those are all things that you can exercise on a gap year to great effect. And these are all pictures of students who've taken a gap year in the 2020-2021 cycle, meaning they are COVID gappers. They are gap year students who've been able to have pretty incredible adventures, even during this kind of tricky time of navigating travel restrictions and COVID protocols and things like that. So the most common types of gap year opportunities that have been able to run during COVID are domestic, meaning they're not outside the country, although there are quite a few people who have been able to travel outside the country. And a lot of them are group-based, meaning that they are going with formal programs that allow them to travel with their peers in a group setting with leaders and be able to see and do some pretty cool things. Other students are completely self-designing their gap time this year. They're creating their own schedules, they're investigating and exploring things that are of interest to them, and they might be doing this close to home. They might spend part of their year close to home and then go away from home and do a program or opportunity. There are students who are road tripping. There are students who are starting to travel now in the spring of 2021, kind of towards the end of their gap year. So there is no one roadmap for a gap year. It's really personalized and customized. This is one of the reasons why students get really excited about gap time, is that it isn't just go here, do this, achieve this. It's really customized and personalized to what you want to get out of it. So pretty exciting stuff, but a lot of times it's actually kind of confusing to figure out what to do. So I'm going to use the bulk of our time here today to kind of go through the different types of gap year opportunities and what the scenarios might be in the context of COVID. So as you can see, I'm not going to go over all these categories on this slide. I'm going to kind of go through each of the different ones on a new slide, but there's all these different types of categories. And one thing that's important to know is that most gap year students actually do a combination of things throughout their year. So they don't just do one thing, but they might work at home during the summer and then go off and do a gap year program in the fall, then come home for the holidays, then go off after the holidays and do one or two more things before the following summer. So you can choose to do different things that have different costs, are in different geographic areas, and exercise different levels of independence, so that over the course of your year, you've been able to do more than just one thing. So keeping that in mind is an important part of planning because it'll allow you some flexibility in thinking about how to stretch your budget and how to choose the programs that are right for you. When gap year program participants have been surveyed, their actual top, roadblock is not knowing exactly what programs to choose or how to go about finding gap year opportunities. So hopefully this little video will help you figure some of that out. So one thing that I think is really, well, more than one thing, a couple things that are pretty useful to know in the context of gapping during COVID is that flexibility is really important. So you really want to keep in mind those goals. If you can think about the goals that you want to achieve on your gap year, then you can attach those goals to different COVID scenarios. So let me explain. If you do a brainstorming exercise where you identify 3 to 5 different goals for your gap time, they could be geographic. Hey, I really want to go to a Spanish speaking country so I can practice my Spanish. They may be personal. I really want to spend time doing art because I haven't gotten a chance to do that during the past year of my life. Or they could be professional. I think I want to go into marketing. Maybe I should do an internship. So thinking about goals in different categories of your life and then allowing yourself the brainstorming opportunity to think about how that could look on your gap year will help set the stage for how to connect your goals to opportunities. So in the context of COVID, there are many different ways to access opportunities, even if we are, in a lockdown situation, which we were at this time last year. So a lot of gap year programs have actually pivoted to offer virtual opportunities. I know that if you're a senior right now and I say the word virtual, you might be like, ah, but bear with me because there's actually a lot of really cool virtual opportunities. They're really experiential, they're very affordable, and oftentimes they can be combined with different in-person opportunities. So before you write that off, just keep in mind that there are a lot of virtual offerings that you could leverage at some point during your gap year. There's also a lot of people who stay local for part or all of their gap time. You can have some amazing gap year experiences close to home. Or you can also think about who you might know in your network, family, friends, other types of family members who live in other places who you might be able to stay with or who might have lodging that they can offer you at some point during your gap year so you can have a low cost or free place to stay while being away from home. You definitely want to think about ways to increase your independence if you're close to home to make sure that you are not just, again, like extending that high school experience into your adulthood. So the other thing that you can keep in mind is that you can stay in the States and still have amazing gap year experiences. This is a big country. And I think that a lot of gap year students this past year who thought they were going to go abroad and actually stayed domestic have been really happy to explore all that America has to offer and all the different subcultures we have here. So think about where in the States you might want to explore opportunities because obviously that's going to be something that's on offer for you this coming year. And then international. I know that the idea of going abroad could seem a little bit iffy right now, but there's actually a lot of programs that have found COVID-safe ways to travel internationally. And as we all increase our vaccination rates and as the world starts to open up again, more and more is going to start being on offer this coming year. That being said, I always want to insert a caveat that every other country is going to have different rates of their vaccination program. So that will require the governments to react accordingly. Some countries are talking about offering vaccine passports. So if an American has their COVID vaccine, they will show that when they cross over the border and then get let in. Other countries might say, we don't want any foreigners or Americans for the time being, and they might open their borders at a later date. So it's important to stay flexible with different locations and working with a gap year counselor like myself, I'm kind of staying on top of all the different border restrictions and what's going to be opening and closing and how programs are reacting to those border openings and closures. We also might see things change over the course of the gap year for better or for worse. Or more countries could open, or there could be some complications, next winter again, and we might have to pivot. So making sure that your gap year goals can kind of exist in any of these three scenarios, either local or virtual, US based or international, is a great way to think about being able to achieve what you want out of your gap time, no matter what. So first I wanted to kind of give you a sense of the structured opportunities that you can do on your gap year. These are the ones I kind of mentioned before. You're with a peer group, usually somewhere between 6 and 15 other gap year age students or college age students. And you're doing a program where there's a theme of some sort. That theme could be outdoor education, as on the all the way on the left. That theme could be cultural, language based. Maybe you're going into a country that doesn't speak English, learning the language, living with a homestay family. Could be arts related or music or service learning related. So a lot of these programs have themes. A lot of them are based around adventure travel and seeing and meeting new people. But mostly one of the biggest things about these programs is that it is all about the socialization with your peers. So if you're thinking, oh, I haven't gotten to see my friends in over a year, this could be a good type of program to consider because it is highly social. And then interning is another type of structured opportunity. A lot of us think of interning as your dad's buddy has a company, you go intern at it. That is one way to do internship opportunity, and I highly recommend it. But if you don't have any links in an industry that's interesting to you, there are actually internship programs that offer housing, an internship match, and other types of support that allow you to explore different industries on your gap year. And I would say that some sort of career exploration is really, really good to do on your gap year because most people when they graduate high school don't really have a good sense of what they want to do. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on you once you get to college to make those choices. And you want to have some information in which to make those choices. So interning or getting other types of career related experience on your gap year, really good idea. Volunteering. Service is such a good way to spend gap time. I think that national service is a really good thing to pay attention to if you want to stay in the States, if you're looking for a longer term experience and you like that idea of a peer group, because a lot of these gap year opportunities offered by AmeriCorps offer a fully funded gap year experience. Usually they're 10 months in length. Sometimes they're shorter, sometimes they're longer. And programs like City Year and NCCC and Public Allies allow gap year students who are just out of high school to apply. So think about AmeriCorps opportunities if you're looking for a fully funded gap year opportunity that is structured and where you're going to be able to give back right here in our own country. There are other types of volunteer experiences, both here in the States and abroad. I like to subcategorize them into kind of people and community, so like people focused, and then there's kind of conservation and environmental focused. So, if you are really interested in education and teaching, there are teaching projects where you can work as a teaching assistant in other communities in other countries. Same thing with conservation. If you're really passionate about biology and wildlife, there are field-based research programs all over the world. There are programs where you can do reforestation projects. There are wildlife rehabilitation centers who need your help. So thinking about the locations you're interested in and then the type of volunteering that you're interested in would also help you with that search process. So another way that people spend gap time is through courses. And sometimes these courses are credit bearing for college credit, and other times they're just for skills building and enrichment. And they do happen in a lot of different settings. So some of these courses are virtual. For example, I had a student this year who did a lot of courses on Coursera, which is an open source opportunity for you to take all sorts of college level courses. But then there's also career development courses and other types of virtual career skills building courses that are really useful. There's also that you can take in-person courses just for enrichment. The student in the picture is actually on a ski development course in Whistler, so that does not sound too shabby. You can also get certificates and other types of enrichment badges through some of these programs, whether it's in the arts, like learning how to paint or sculpt or photography. There's film and drama classes that you can take. There's all sorts of outdoor skills, learning, getting your whitewater certification or learning how to get your AVI certification in backcountry skiing. All these things are really cool ways to develop yourself and your skill set on your gap year. And then there's all sorts of pre-professional courses that you can take. You can get certified in green building with a eco development design course. You can do actual college credits and offset some credits once you get to school. So thinking about how to strategize your learning and your intellectual engagement on your gap year is a good idea. And all of these opportunities are very much experiential. So even if you're learning and engaging your mind, you're still usually doing it in a very hands-on kind of way. So if you're burnt out from being in a classroom and burnt out from Zoom, don't worry about it. There's ways that you can learn on your gap year that are really engaging. And then there's lots of self-designed experiences. You know, a lot of students, I would say most students work at some part of their gap year, if not most of their gap year. So thinking about working to save money to put towards other experiences is important. Work exchanges, like working on organic farms or working abroad for room and board in exchange for your labor, really, really popular gap year opportunity that, again, as we move out of the COVID times, is going to become even more accessible for you. Lots of students start businesses, build their online brands, work on entrepreneurial ideas on their gap year. If you're a self-starter and want to do that, this is a great opportunity. And then adventures. You know, students even this year have done amazing outdoor adventures like hiking the Appalachian Trail, lots of road tripping, people meeting people, people going with friends and having adventures in the Great Mountain West. And you know, all sorts of other things that you can do that build your independence, that allow you to try out your decision-making skills in the real world and are a lot of fun. So thinking about what adventures you might want to have on your gap year that are kind of on that bucket list. So when it comes to thinking about how you spend your gap time, there are questions that you can ask yourself to kind of start that process. You heard me talking about goals. So thinking about your personal, practical, and professional goals is a great way to start. Thinking about what languages you've learned in high school, and if you want to continue that learning, if you want to try a completely new one, that's a great place to think about where you might spend gap time. Are you a social activist? Do you have other social issues that you care about? That's another really worthwhile way to spend gap time, and lots of organizations and formal gap year programs are integrating environmental justice and social justice into their programs. How might your gap year goals attach to different COVID scenarios? Do you think you want to have the peace of mind of staying in the country? Are you ready to go abroad? What is that going to look like for you? And have you had experiences in the past that you've really enjoyed that you want to build on? A lot of students who've gone to summer camp or who've done like a NOLS or Outward Bound course in high school, they're ready to take it up a notch and try something new. So thinking about the experiences that really make you come alive and how to build off those on your gap time. So, you know, if you still feel a little bit lost in the process as you start your gap year planning, that's where I come in. I'm a gap year counselor, so I really help work with you and your parents to identify those goals, help match those goals to trusted and reliable programs, and then stay with you through your whole gap year planning and execution process to be a resource and mentor for you. So if that sounds useful to you, I hope that we can chat sometime soon. If you're watching this and we've already set up an introductory conversation, can't wait to talk to you. If you're watching this and want to talk to me, please fill out the questionnaire on my website and I will reach out to set up a Zoom call so that we can talk through your ideas and really have a good brainstorming session. So with that, I'll leave you with a couple other places to find me and other resources that you can access. I co-host a podcast called Gap Year Radio. I interview Gap Year alumni with my co-host. It's a great place to hear student stories. So if you're really wanting to hear from the student perspective, who wouldn't? Check out Gap Year Radio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all the places you find podcasts. I'm very easy to find on social media. I'm most active on Instagram at enroutegapyear. So find me there. And you can also email me, julia@enroutegapyear.com with any questions. I also recommend checking out the Gap Year Association, gapyearassociation.org, USA Gap Year Fairs, which has virtual fairs and other types of online resources, and the Service Year Alliance, where you can find more AmeriCorps and national service opportunities, which is serviceyear.org. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn a little bit more about the gap year option. I hope that this was helpful for you, and I hope that we get a chance to chat soon. Have a great one.